All right, so we are ready to roll. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our CEO and our resident design and build expert here, Bakari Grant.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Laura. So we'll kick it off. If you've participated or seen one of our webinars, or I know we're posting these now online. If you've seen one, we've tried a few different formats, some things that have really resonated with our customers to get them the information that they're looking for. And so we'll continue to evolve that and try to give folks what they need, try to inform is a really big part of this. Again, we'd love for you to work with WellNest. If you're looking at building a tiny home ADU, especially for a senior, but as Laura mentioned, we're starting to venture outside of that space and help folks that really could utilize our services. But again, even if you're trying to build an ADU by yourself or you're going with a contractor or a different company, we want to provide you with the information so you can ask the right questions up front and get the right information. It's a great option, and this is a great opportunity to help solve some of the California housing issues. That's why we're a very big cheerleader for ADUs throughout the state. It's began to solve a lot of these housing problems that we're facing here in California. So we'll continue to push, especially for our seniors, to help us, sustain proximity to family, to build community, and to stay in the communities that we've grown to love. So without further ado, the customer journey. This has been a big one for us. We've had a lot of requests and folks wanting to know, what does it take to build an ADU? How do you get from point A, where I'm getting information, all the way through construction? So today we'll walk through that process. And I think it's a great opportunity for Laura to throw some questions at me kind of on the fly. Laura's been with the WellNest company for about 4 months now, and has had the opportunity to go to some of these events, go on some of these site visits, and really hear some of the questions that customers are asking. And now I think this is a great opportunity for her to reflect on that time and maybe get some of these answers herself, as well as provide some insight for the folks listening in. So Laura will be trying to throw me off guard a little bit here with some questions throughout the day, and we'll try to make it conversational. Again, we want to inform, but we also want to make sure that folks are getting what they need from these webinars. So
yeah, when I heard you were doing this topic, actually, I was really excited about it, because I feel like there's definitely some comfort level involved with knowing what to expect, right? The unknown is just scary for people, and this is a big investment. So appreciate this topic.
Yeah, this is awesome. So without further ado, just so you guys can kind of keep track, I like letting you know how the webinar is going to go, what information we're going to cover, so you can kind of understand what's going to come down the line and what you have to look forward to. So today what we're going to cover are the 4 phases of our customer journey. These are really 4 phases that we've realized throughout all of our projects that we have to go through to have a successful project. So the 4 phases are the initiation phase, pre-construction, construction, and then we're going to talk a little bit about post-construction, which is really important for us because we do partner with service providers to, again, extend senior services, maintenance services, and other services that can benefit you as an ADU owner. So we'll cover all that today. Like I said, I'll try to give breaks in the information for any questions or comments that Laura may have that she's kind of experienced as coming on new with the WellNest company. So,
and then also, Bakari, I didn't mention that anybody, as the topics are going along, you can pop something into the Q&A, and we'll make a note of the questions, and it'll either get covered or we'll make sure that we cover it. So they've got answers to those.
Absolutely. So we'll jump right in. The initiation phase. And again, a big thing that we push in the initiation phase is getting the right information out to customers or potential customers. And the great thing that I love about ADUs and all the laws that have passed in the past few years is we've created this amazing community of folks who are really excited about getting the right information, getting the up-to-date information out to customers and potential ADU builders. We did an event this past weekend with Inspired ADU, where we did an ADU tour throughout Berkeley, Oakland, Richmond, where folks can go inside customers' ADUs that were recently built and really ask the right questions to the companies that have gone ahead and built them. Ran into a lot of amazing people there, a lot of amazing partners that we're now partnering with here at WellNest. So again, that's been a huge part of the ADU community, is really spreading the information and getting folks the right information. So that leads me into our first customer step, and that's the first touch for us. That's where you're introduced to WellNest. We really try to figure out, where are you on your ADU journey? How much information do you know? Do you have ideas about the design you're going to build? Here we try to ask a ton of questions and really get to understand, what do you think about ADUs and how are you going about building your ADU, so we can best facilitate that relationship. So that's a very first step. Next step is to get you information based on where you are on your knowledge level when it comes to ADUs. So again, we do that in a number of ways. This webinar has been a great tool for us of recent. When folks say, I've looked at ADUs, some folks have even tried to build ADUs before, but ran into issues when they got down to it. So things like this webinar, where we give you the right information, or we have a ton of one-pagers on our units that talk about different units that we offer, timeline, what does the full customer journey look like? Depending on where you're at is where we want to get you information. And sometimes that does lead us to send you over to a partner to say, hey, we know you're really early on, or you're having trouble with financing. We have some financing partners that can get you the right information that you might be looking for, that we might not necessarily have. So that's where we really try to get you the information you need to facilitate where you are on this journey. So
yeah, and
that's
also
step two.
along with that, Bakari, the showroom here. So we are kind of our information and communication hub. We are here from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and we actually answer the phone personally. So our aim is, unless we're with another customer or we're, otherwise occupied for the moment, you can reach a human being and we can either help you out, set up an appointment, get you headed in the right direction with the proper channels of who you need to talk to, which department can help you out. So just know that you can make appointments for site visits through the office. You can come in and take a look at the fixtures and finishes, or bring a family member to look at the express pod. Maybe you were out at one of our events and you saw it, and now you want to bring somebody else to take a look at it. So by all means, reach out to us. I can just drop our phone number real quick, which is 925-248-8736.
That's right. And Laura brings up a good point. What a lot of folks will see if they check out our website or hear about our story is that we started in the senior space. We started serving a certain demographic, and a lot of folks refer to that as a boomer demographic. Now, with that, I think it gave us some really good tools as a company, as a business. And we like, I'll say, that old school touch. We like the human touch. We're local. We're right here in Dublin. We build throughout the East Bay. As Laura said, you can typically get in touch with a person. On the other side, it's not all, technical or everything online. You can absolutely get a ton of information online. But what we realize coming from the senior space is that if we're real, if you're dealing with a real person, it's always good to have that authentic touch. So if you want to come down to our showroom, check out our space. If you want to talk about your custom ADU build, we'll even come out to your property, which leads us to the next step in the customer journey, and that's our property consultation. Right now, our affiliates are offering this as a free service. So if you give us a call and you're interested in building an ADU, our affiliates will come out to your property. No pressure, look at your property and really talk about what are your priorities. Again, I think, when we're thinking about building a home, which we are doing, we're building a home. This isn't a shed. It's not a box. This is a home. Now, when you're building a home, you have certain priorities, whether it's for an aging loved one, or a college kid that's coming back from school, or traveling nurses, or you want to rent it out. Whatever the case, you have your set of priorities that you want to focus on throughout this build. Our job is to figure out those priorities and make sure we're sticking to those priorities throughout the entire build, which can seem simple enough. But again, when we start talking about windows and floors and foundation and all those technical things, sometimes we forget that we're building for people. So we make sure that at the beginning of our first property consultation, our job is to figure out what your priorities are and make sure that we can uphold those throughout the project. So that's the next step in the customer journey. Again, we're doing that for free right now. So if you're interested in building an ADU, you have some ideas, call us up, have one of our guys or gals come out and check out your property and give you some information.
I just want to say that this whole idea from a consumer standpoint is fantastic. Normally, you can't get anybody to come out to your house for less than $79, probably. More likely $200. I mean, and that's just to look at a little something that might be going wrong, not even to do a fix or anything. That's just, and understandably, it's for their time to come out, and they have a business and they're doing a service. But I just think that it's very unusual to get that, and it's just very exciting. I wonder how much solid information can one expect when we come out for this initial complimentary site visit?
Absolutely. So again, all of our affiliates have a base of knowledge that we provide for them and what we call our sales playbook. That playbook has information about ADU laws that have passed since 2017 that allow us to build. So they know what they're looking for. But again, like I said, their first priority is to figure out what your priorities are as a customer. So once we talk to the customer, once we see their property, once we see kind of the lay of the land, so to speak, some general measurements, what we do is we take that information back and we create what we call a property profile. So that's the next step in the customer journey, is a property profile. Now that property profile will have some, pertinent information about your home, your property, the ADU that you desire. It'll list some of your priorities, and it'll have a general design based on what you've chosen you want to build on your property. But what comes with that is a secondary level of information. So again, you may have questions about potential boundary survey, or we've had customers who have wanted to preserve trees on their property. So they need some information about arborists and what that process looks like. Some folks don't even know about a geotechnical engineer who will measure basically the density of your soil to make sure that based on your location, if you're building on a slope or in certain areas, will an ADU sit firmly on a good foundation on your property? Now, we have information about all those things, and if you have questions or things come up when we're on your site that we notice, maybe about PG&E, plumbing, or electrical, then we can provide that information in that property profile. So that's been really helpful for us. It's been helpful for our customers to really get the information they need after we come out for that consultation. So that's our next step in getting them information. After that property profile, that'll be a document you can keep. You'll see some designs. You'll see an initial estimate based on your priorities again and your design. And then what we ask is that customers can either tour our showroom, as Laura said, they can take a tour of one of our units that we've recently built. Depending on the city, we have them in different locations throughout the East Bay. But then we ask you to set up an official site visit. Now, what that does is gets our entire team out. Typically, that comes with a sales affiliate, a construction manager, and then a project manager who would then lead that project. And what they do is get precise measurements. They check out your utility hookups, where we're going to connect to sewer, water, electrical, and all those really technical aspects of the build. So this is probably one of the most important steps in our entire customer journey, because again, it allows us to get ahead of problems before they come up. Now, customers, we encourage, if you're looking to do a DIY, go ahead. I mean, we may not be the company for you if you're looking to do that yourself. But again, there's certain information that you need, and we as an expert can provide you with that information. That's what this webinar is for, so that if you're going to do these things on your own or with a contractor, you need to be asking these questions up front. Why might my property need a boundary survey? What are those setback rules? What are some of the new legislations that are coming down the line that may affect me in a year or two after I build my unit? A ton of questions we get are about, what are the tax implications if I build an ADU on my property? All that we're able to take care of on our official site visit, which is getting you the right information and preparing for the build so that it goes smoothly throughout the rest of the process.
Bakari, is the timeline communicated clearly at each step so nobody's waiting on the other person? I find that that's something that happens a lot, not necessarily with this, but just in dealing with companies in general, where I'm waiting for you, but you're waiting for me, and nobody really knows that the other one is waiting for the other.
Absolutely. And it brings up a good point. And number one, why customer journey is so important, why to have this information available for customers up front. Because a lot of folks, when they're looking to build an ADU, they think, okay, once I'm ready for construction, once I'm ready for my house to be torn up, which is, spring, summertime, now I want to talk to a company. But what we tell folks is 2/3 of the ADU building process really happens before we even start constructing the unit itself. Before we come to your property and do any demo, 2/3 of this process happens before that. And now, with that being said, is communication is key. So if we say, for instance, we're going to go through this design process and you're looking at different architectural elements, if you can make decisions quickly, then this process moves along a little bit faster. Again, the next piece that takes really long outside of the design process is when you look at the permitting process. So what we really try to do is time these things up. So by the time you're ready to build in spring or summer, we already have all these other things taken care of. We have permits in hands. We have contractors ready to go. We have your project manager ready to lead your project and really get things going. So absolutely, communication is paramount in when we talk about customers and customer journey. So next on the step, or next step on the customer journey, is what we call our service agreement. So our service agreement allows us to represent you as a homeowner. It allows us to start putting your project together, make sure your financing is in place, procuring material so that we can be ready to build when the time comes. So it's getting all those things lined up. But until we sign an agreement, obviously we can't do that for you. So the next step after your official site visit is to say, we love it, we want to move ahead. So this is a really important step, especially if you're not working with a company like WellNest, because now you're talking about getting contractors under contract, getting potentially a designer, architects, engineers, and getting all those folks in line. Now, when it comes to signing a contract, you have to understand that you're signing a document that is you're agreeing to certain terms with whoever you're signing that contract with. So if you're signing a contract with the general contractor that's going to build your ADU, things to look out for. What incentives do they have to operate in a way that's advantageous to you? For example, are they incentivized to get your project done on time? Do they have penalties if they're not getting it done on time? Are they incentivized to have experts on their staff, or are they allowed to bring the brother-in-law who can do electrical kind of? So those are all things that, you really want to look for when you're signing a contract with anyone. The advantage of signing an agreement with a service agreement with WellNest is we reach out to all these folks. Some of them, a lot of them are in-house team members. But when anybody's coming on your site to do work, they sign our contracts, which means there's absolutely an advantage for the homeowner. We make sure that if they're not getting the job done, that there's penalties for that. We make sure that everybody that shows up to the job site is licensed, bonded, and insured. We make sure that if you're going to work with an architect, they're licensed and they've worked in that city before, so they know what the regulations are with your municipality. So those are, again, benefits of working with a company that's built to protect you as a customer. But again, if you're doing this yourself, there are absolutely ways to protect yourself. And I would say, make sure you understand what the agreement says between you and the professionals that you're working with.
I think it's great to have a dedicated point person too that knows the status of your project, right? So somebody that you can touch base with that either knows exactly what's happening or can get you the information that you need, through the city or whatnot.
That's right. And I mean, one of the things that I tell folks all the time is you can work with WellNest, and basically if you have a full-time job, if you're taking care of family, we're built to do the work for you. We're built to represent you as an expert so that you can live your life and continue to live that as we take care of these things on the back end. Now, you'll hear out there stories of, we have a ton of price ranges from people who've built ADUs. I've seen it as low as people claim $49,000 up to $1 million for an ADU. What I tell folks, if you're going to build an ADU, you're going to save money. But understand this, if you're doing it yourself, you will be a project manager. So if you have a full-time job, you're going to clock out at 5, clock back in at 5 for your second job as project manager. You're going to have to make the phone calls. You're going to have to talk to the city officials. You're going to have to make sure your architects, designers, engineers, all are getting back to you promptly. And then you're going to have to make sure guys are showing up on time and doing what they say they're supposed to be doing. So even though you may be saving money up front, you're going to pay that in time as a project manager, which is okay. Some people enjoy that. So that's another piece of when you sign an agreement with us, know what you're getting. You're getting someone to placehold who's an expert who can take care of all these things for you.
Not
And
to
again,
mention the unknown with that, which is keeping the timeline, right? So
right.
you might have your timeline set, but guess what? If your electrician is now running behind or your cabinet guy is running behind, some of this stuff like knocks everybody else's schedule down. And then now you're waiting 6 more weeks.
That's right. And again, I mean, every project I tell folks, we're not magicians. We're not going to magically make this project happen flawlessly. But what it means is that you have an expert who's used to seeing construction of an ADU from start to finish and knows the typical things that can go wrong, and then knows how to mitigate those things when they do happen to go wrong. So again, when we're talking about staying on time and staying on budget, those are 2 parts of a project. That is why you want a project manager, why you want someone who's been there, done that, just so some of the knowns are taken care of. And on top of that, we do provide a project management software where you can follow along every piece of the project. You have all your documents in one place, and you have a schedule to know exactly what's coming up. So that's a big part of what we do as well.
Bakari, can you talk a little bit about fixed pricing and what makes it attractive?
Absolutely. So for us, again, working in the senior space, transparency is a really big thing for us. So what we do in the beginning when we talk about an official site visit is we go and look at all the potential things that are going to come up during that project, whether it's a certain type of foundation, or you're going to need a surveyor, or the city requires you to have a soils report. We look at all those things up front so we can get a really clear idea of what it's going to cost to build your unit. Once we have that really clear idea, we give that to you as an estimate. And you say, yes, I love it. I want to build it. Then we contact all of our different partners, all of our different staff members, and make sure that we lock in those prices, whether it be material cost or labor cost or permit cost. We lock in all those prices. So when we give you a service agreement, we have what we call fixed pricing. What that means is that the price that's on that contract when you sign that service agreement, that's what you're going to pay. We're not going to come down the line and say, hey, well, the price of siding went up by $10 a linear foot, so now we're going to charge you more. We eat those costs. Now, what that means is we have to be locked in and very knowledgeable about what's going on in the market, about what's going on with our labor, about what's going on in your city with permits, surveys, and other requirements. And what that allows us to do is really get tight and really close to what it's going to cost to build the entire unit, which allows us then to give you a flat fixed rate so you're not dealt surprises 6 months into a project. So that's something that we take pride in. Again, we've heard, horror stories of folks getting quoted one price and then that price doubling by the time they finish adding on all the different elements of the project. So that's really important for us.
And you talked about the price per square footage and that sort of thing a little bit. And one of the things to kind of think about is, if it's coming in low, maybe not everything you think is included is included. Or if it's coming in high, are they using a different quality of material? Is there different things that you can do to make that adjustment? So, just making sure you know what you're getting and you're comparing apples to apples.
That's right. And we did a webinar a couple of weeks back where we talked about how do you budget for an ADU. And a big part of that is when people talk about a per square foot build cost, they're really considering 2 different things. It's construction and materials, typically. That typically doesn't include engineering, architecture fees, permits, or some of those other soft costs. So when you break down price per square foot, when someone presents a price to you, understand again, as Laura mentioned, part of that is construction labor costs, and the other part is material costs. We like to break those out when we budget because, again, what you may want to put in your unit as a rental may be a little bit more durable, a lower end, more easily accessible. Whereas if I'm doing this to downsize because I want to live in a smaller unit and travel, I may want higher end finishes that are going to cost a little bit more per square foot. So those are some big considerations, as Laura mentioned, to take into consideration when you're looking at pricing. So everyone wants to know the big pricing question. We did, again, check out that webinar. I think it gives you a good idea about how we break down how to budget for an ADU. And again, our property profiles, we show you what it's going to cost to get this designed, engineered, and ready to go, what the permit fees are going to cost, and then what the construction costs are going to be. And we wrap that all up into one flat rate or one fixed rate once you sign an agreement with us. So great question there, Laura. All right, so that's all in the initiation phase. So we haven't even got to the pre-construction phase. So that just shows you, again, 2/3 of this project really happens behind the scenes before we even break ground. So next we'll move into pre-construction. There's two major parts of pre-construction. The first one is your design. So after you sign an agreement with us, we get down to the nitty-gritty. We get our design team going with first conceptual design. Then we go into architectural design. And this is really where you start paying attention to, do you want a glass front door or do you want a solid front door? Do you want quartz countertops or do you want laminate countertops? Those are some of the questions we start asking in this phase. So as Laura mentioned, down at our showroom, we have a very good sample of our materials that you can come check out and decide whether, what doorknobs you want to go with, what cabinet pulls you want to go with. We keep our choices very simple. We keep our quality on the higher end. So we're, I would say, mid to high end on our quality of all of our materials, but you really get to do some customization for your unit without being overwhelmed with all the choices. But that's where it happens in the architectural design phase. We get all that picked out. Then we go into structural engineering. Again, if we need any on-site work, that's also happening. So that's any survey, soil testing, potentially getting an arborist out to decide, are these roots going to cause issue during this project or not? That all happens in this phase. And then once we're done with that, we have things like Title 24 and Cal Green. This is something really important that I think people overlook when we talk about customer journey or building the process of building an ADU. When you look at Title 24 at Cal Green, and that's our energy efficiency building codes here in California, this is the difference between building a home and building a shed or building a box. Some of the pre-manufactured have different rules that they abide by, but when you do a stick built like we do here in California, there's something called Title 24 or Cal Green. That looks at your insulation, your fan or your mechanical system, air conditioning, the VOCs that are used. So again, we try to be as green as possible, as efficient in our build as possible. So again, moving towards a low carbon footprint. When we talk about the type of insulation we're using, or even down to the type of glue that we use, on wall panels, flooring, or mortar when we're doing tile. Those things all come into play early on in our design phase. As far as getting down to the appliances that you use, come down to this phase. So it's really important that you work with someone who understands what things California is looking for and what things are an advantage to have in your home when we're talking about a healthy living space that is going to last for a really long time. So again, this is one of those things.
When you have,
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
When you started talking about appliances and fixtures, that sort of thing. So one thing that comes up quite a bit for people that have seen our Express Pod, which is our mobile unit at events, they always want to know, where's the stovetop? Where's the microwave? Where's the dishwasher, washer, and dryer? So can you talk to a little bit about why we don't do that in our base level unit?
Absolutely. And I'll say we don't have it in certain units. So again, us starting in the senior space, universal design was a really big thing for us. And for those who don't know what universal design is, we also did a webinar on that a few weeks back. But universal design basically talks about accessibility and building for accessible use, whether that's someone with a disability, someone with sight issues, hearing issues, or maybe in a wheelchair. So when we build our units, especially for our senior demographic, we have different considerations. So if you have a loved one that's aging, but may not be quite equipped anymore to use a stove or a oven because there's fear of maybe leaving it on or fire issues. Those are all considerations that we've taken into place. So when someone has built a unit in the past, there's been a ton of requests not to provide cooking appliances or anything like that because it becomes a safety issue. So we do offer food prep services where we get food delivered to site as one of those kind of post-construction services. So those are all still considerations, but again, this comes down to your priorities. So as I mentioned, when we first come to your site, that's what we're asking you. If cooking devices are a priority, if certain types of appliances are a priority, let's talk about that up front. But we do offer in all of our units to have a full kitchen, stovetop, convection oven, full-size range, refrigerator, dishwashers, washer and dryers, all of the above. Our units do come equipped with appliances, not furniture, but appliances.
So we do allow for plenty of customization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All based on your priorities. And the reason we brought that up initially, again, things that can cause you issues during a build. Most folks don't know that you cannot in California do a stick-built ADU without passing your CalGreen inspection before you get your permit or before you get your final inspection. Now that means whether that's testing equipment, your water heater, your air conditioning unit, they test all those things to make sure that the unit is built up to code. So that's something, check it out early, talk with your designer early, your contractor early about CalGreen inspections, about Title 24, because it becomes a really important thing when you're finishing up a project.
So these are some of the factors that determine how long it may take to get the details firmed up for approval, correct? And then each time we hit another hurdle, we check in with the customer directly for their approval. So we're not just off on our own deciding everything for the customer.
That's right. So as we get through conceptual design, that gets sent out and needs an approval. Architectural designs, again, when we talk about appliances, fixtures, doors and windows, that needs an approval for the customer. Again, this is your project. We're just leading it for you. So we'll come and get approvals for every step of the way, all the way through permitting. So which leads us to our next step. After we've gone through this design process, we have our plan set ready, we have all of our construction documents, then we submit those to the city. Now that means we do all applications, we obviously get your signatures, get your approvals for every step along the way. We make sure that all the documents that are needed to be submitted are presented to you and that you're aware of them. And that does include dealing with utilities, which means PG&E or your local water district. We make sure we understand everything that needs to be submitted to get your permits and to build your unit. And then we make all those submittals for you. So that's the next step, is a permitting phase. From that phase, again, this can be the most time consuming, especially if you're not familiar with the process, because what will happen is you'll submit, they'll kick it back and say, you forgot to sign this document. Then you'll resubmit, then they'll kick it back and say, your architect needs to highlight this on the plan set. And the more that you build these ADUs, the more that you're familiar with the city or the process, the faster this goes. Everybody has, or a lot of folks have horror stories about, the permitting process and, oh, it was a headache and the city was so difficult. A lot of times the cities want these units to be built. The cities want to help you build these, but they also have regulations, codes, and stipulations to how you get these permits. And the better familiarized you are with these codes, laws, and different regulations, the smoother that process goes. Now, we've built great relationships throughout all the cities we've built in. So if we do have a particular situation, it's very simple for us to pick up the phone, call down, whether that's the planning, building, or zoning department, and figure out what needs to be done to make sure that we're on top of it. So when we come to this permitting phase, we have as smooth of a process as possible.
Would you say that it's improved with the new laws and the ADU friendly ordinances now?
Absolutely. And I would say it's just like any new law. Sometimes the cities aren't that familiar with the regulation. So if you know what laws you're abiding by or what laws have been passed, what bills have been passed that are in favor for you to build an ADU, sometimes you have to call those out on your plan set so that you really walk the city through exactly why you're doing what you're doing. So again, it's an advantage when you know those rules and those regulations, because sometimes it makes it a simpler process for the cities as well, which they appreciate, right?
Yeah. And this is the long part, right? So this is a lot of it is completely out of everybody's control. How can I be kept informed of the status of the project when we're in this phase?
Absolutely. So I spoke to it a little bit before. As soon as you sign a contract with us, we onboard you onto our project management software. And basically what that does is it highlights everything that's going on. So if we have a submittal, that's written down in a daily log. If we get information back from the city, that's written down in your daily log or added to your document section. We add pictures along the entire way. And what we really do for our customers is when we get these responses from cities, sometimes it's in jargon that isn't everyday language. And we translate that. So we may hear something back from the city and we try to translate that for our customers to keep it really simple. You know, hey, the city kicked this back because A, B, or C, and here's how we're going to respond to that. And in a lot of cases, if you are trusting with our experts up front, we can keep a lot of these things out of the way because we know they're going to come down the line. Now, some folks are really adamant about doing things a certain way. And again, we're your representative. So we're going to, in most cases, do what you want to get done. But if we give you advice on certain things, we ask that you take it because we know what's happened in the past. We know laws that have come down the line that are either in favor or that are going to be difficult to, whether it's get exemptions on or other things like that. So I would say, again, if we're talking about how long does it take to get through this entire process, the more you trust the experts and the people you put in place to do the job, the smoother it typically goes. All right, so we got through all that. We've gotten through the initiation phase, the permitting phase, or the pre-construction phase, and we finally got the green light from the city. We have permits in hand. We have our construction documents ready to go, and now we can start what everybody's been waiting for, and that's construction. Construction, in most cases, can take as little as 2 months, and on average takes about 4 months. And so what people tend to think is, hey, I want my ADU to be ready in 5 months, so I'm going to start this process now. As you can see, a ton of stuff happened before we even got to the construction. So, and all of that happened. So by the time we get to construction, things go smoothly. Everybody knows what to expect. We have timelines. We have the right people in place to make sure the project goes exactly how we want it to go. And this is the fun part. This is when you start seeing your dream come to reality. And so this is really exciting for us because in a lot of cases, similar to ours, this is when we start to see some of those pressures relief. You start seeing the foundation and the framing and the walls and the windows, and you start getting material delivered to the site. And then you see this product at the end that someone's going to live in, and it's going to become a home. And that's what's really exciting for us is taking, an idea or need and then bringing it to fruition. So this is the exciting time. This is where, again, throughout this whole pre-construction process, we've now had the opportunity to order materials, get our panelized systems together, which allow us to build faster, schedule our roof trusses and our guys to come on site so that by time we get to this phase, everything's ready to go and it's like clockwork. So this is our really the exciting time when you start seeing things come to light. And again, every single day is tracked on your software. You can log in, check it out. We have an app on the phone that you can pull up and see exactly what's going on site. We do a ton of pictures. We have our marketing team come out and do walkthroughs with you. And again, I think this is, the part that most people look forward to.
So again, can you say again what panelized system means for those that don't know?
Absolutely. So what most people are familiar with is traditional stick built, which means we bring 2x4s on your property, nail them together, raise up those walls, put on roof rafters, throw up the sheathing, and then start our roof and stuff. It's either that process or a lot of people are familiar with prefab units, which means, you do all the foundation work and the underground work, and somewhere in a warehouse, out in Central California, they're putting together your unit. They drive it to your property. They bring a big crane, crane it over your home, drop it on foundation, and that's prefab. What we are is kind of a hybrid of that. So what we do in a lot of cases, depending on accessibility, is we'll pre-develop your walls, which means we'll nail them together. We'll have some plumbing elements, maybe some electrical elements in some cases, but at least we'll get your walls put together. We'll have roof trusses designed and built, which means you don't have to do rafters. We come, pick those up, put them on top of the roof, secure them in, and then you're good to go. So that speeds up our framing process by about 70% when we can do a full set of panelized walls and roof trusses. In some cases, we do stick built for our wall systems because of accessibility issues. So say you only have a 3-foot wide fence, and maybe you have something that is hanging above that's blocking us from pulling in those walls, then we can always build our walls on site, which again, still efficient when we talk about roof trusses and things like that, but it gives us that flexibility to build a little bit faster without having to worry about accessibility issues.
So when construction costs change mid-project, I know that you mentioned this earlier, but just for those that weren't on, or maybe just to reiterate, because I think it's really important. We've all heard nightmares about, okay, well, now these costs have ballooned high and above what we thought they were, or, Shri writes in that somebody told them it was going to, the cabinet guy, hey, it was only going to take 2 weeks, and now 3.5 months later. Well, time is money, and all of these little delays end up costing, because you're on somebody else's clock too, and if they're not there, you're still paying them for their time, and now you have to reschedule. Can you just kind of reiterate when things change, and the whole idea of keeping the price what they've signed off on?
Absolutely. So again, a big part of what we do is we try to time these things perfectly. And I'll say perfectly, and really it's just right on time is what they call it in the industry. And what that means is once you sign a contract and once we get your design built out, we know what we're going to build on your site. We go into material procurement, which means we look at an advantageous time to buy the materials we're going to need for your project. If you come down to our showroom, we do have the pretty stuff up front. We have, a great space and place where you could pick out your materials and things like that. But if you walk through the doors of the back of our showroom, we have a warehouse space. And we keep that warehouse space so that we can get materials when it's advantageous for our customers. So about a year and a half ago, there was increase in costs, and due to COVID, delays in logistics and things like that, where lumber went up by 1,000%. And that happened over a set of months. It obviously didn't stay there. It went down and came up and went down. But we had an advantage in the space because we were able to stock a lot of our materials from our cabinet vendors, from our lumber vendors. And that gave us an advantage when we went to build because we weren't paying today's prices. We have to store them. Yeah, we have to pay for warehousing. But when we can buy them to an advantage for us, that's when we get them. And then we can pass that savings on to our customers. So again, even if you're doing this yourself, that means stay aware of the markets. There is a lumber market and materials market that controls construction materials, and you'll see it fluctuate. You'll see it go up by, as much as 800% recently, and then come back down. So when you're looking to build, that's something that we take pride in, is that from the beginning of the project, as soon as you sign contract, we start looking at all these different costs and figure out where we can save you money on some of these materials. And again, that way we can pass those savings off to our customers and regulate our cost, which allows us to do flat rate costing for our customers. So keep an eye out if you're doing it yourself. Again, these are great questions to ask your contractor. If you're dealing with the GC, how do they regulate that? How do they not, pass those costs on if industry prices increase on materials? They'll be familiar because if they've been part of the trades longer than, a year, 2 years, then they know what happened kind of around COVID and the times after that of fluctuations in the industry. So ask those questions. All right, so now that we're through construction, we're closing up, we're pushing the refrigerator in and wiping down the microwave and getting that final inspection. What you'll get then is what we call a final inspection card, which means all the signatures from the different inspectors will be listed on that card to show you that we've built everything up to code. And that is your certificate of occupancy. That's your first document that you can use to say, I can live in this unit. Somebody can live in this unit. I can rent this unit or otherwise. And then what comes after that, and it's city by city, Sometimes it takes, a couple of weeks, a couple of days, or a month or so. They'll send you a certificate of occupancy that you want to put together and keep in a safe place. What we do for our customers in our next and last phase of the project, called our closeout or post construction, is we provide you with your very own binder. We do a physical copy and we do a digital copy. And what that has in it is all the appliances, warranties, special equipment, special materials, that you can refer back to when you need, say, you need to replace a floor tile because you dropped something on it and it cracked, or the window started leaking. And number one, call us first. We can take care of that as part of our warranty. But also that means that you'll know where that window came from, the product number, the model number, and all that information. Maybe you're trying to get a certain set of blinds or shutters, and you'll know exactly the size of your windows, where they're located, all that good information, and all that's provided in our closeout binder. So you'll have that information available. And again, that includes paint colors, that includes flooring types, materials, and vendors, all the things that you need to maintain your unit. And this goes into what we also offer here at WellNest, and that's our services. It may start with a basic maintenance service. Twice a year, we come out, do a winter service and a summer service where we come, check gutters, clean them out, maybe pressure wash, check all the seals, check your caulking, your sealant, your water heater. If you need to maybe get your water heater flush, we can connect you with our HVAC companies. All those things can be done. But that also extends into what we originally started our company for, in senior care services. We have a ton of providers that can provide in-home care service, transportation, food preparation, companionship services, and others. So this is a really good opportunity for us to really facilitate what our customers need and provide them with the things that, are going to make this a beautiful home for them.
I think it's so important to have a relationship with clients beyond the build. I mean, there have been so many times where something comes up later on and whoever is nowhere to be found, right? And I appreciate that we are continuing to be there for the customers beyond that, later, to modify. I know that we have the ability to change things out later if somebody wants to add an appliance, or, we had talked before about doing a ramp. Well, getting all of that lined up ahead of time and having it as an option, that maybe you're not going to do now, but you might want to add that at some point in the future, and warranty on their investment. So I really like that about this company.
That's right. And I mean, and when you talk about that, that's customer service, right? And from our original visit, if you remember, when we do our property consultation, our job is to figure out what your priorities are. And if you say, hey, these are my priorities today, and we think that's going to change over this amount of time, we can prepare and plan and build out your project based on what your needs are today and in the future. So again, maybe you do have a loved one that's going to live in the unit, or that may live in the unit down the line. We may say, okay, well, if they may move in down the line and say they're in a wheelchair, we don't have to do a ramp today. But let's think about foundation and how high your home sits off the ground. The home behind you, Lord, was prepared in a way that it can now evolve from that set of stairs to a beautiful deck that connects to the main home in the future, because that was a request of the customer. So those are things we take in consideration. Day one is, what are your priorities, not only short term, but long term? And I think as a company, again, when we say social impact, we know that throughout COVID and, even for us, there were limited options for our aging loved ones. And this is what we consider an amazing option that's been facilitated by a number of laws that have passed that allow us now to build something unique and that is customer first. It's not, something generic where you have to adjust your lifestyle to fit this housing, but instead this housing can adjust your lifestyle. So I think it's a really good example of how we are a customer first company.
I do have a couple of people who have actually asked a question about a visual of the customer journey. So I know that we have a document on that. Is that something that we have access to that we could post or that we could get out to people?
Absolutely. I would say number one, reach out directly. We can definitely get you some information on our customer journey. We do on most of our property visits, whether that's an official site visit or otherwise, try to provide any documentation that'll be helpful. And that is one of them is the initiation customer journey. So from first touch all the way through signing a contract, what can you expect along the way? And we also have one for our design phase or our pre-construction that talks about from the moment you sign a contract until we come and do construction, we have all the steps that are going to be taken for you to build your home. So we absolutely have those. Reach out if you would like them. And again, we do provide those at all of our customer property consultations and official site visits.
Yep. Email to the shop directly. You can send it to me. It's Laura, Laura, at wearewellnest.com. So WEAREWELLNEST. So there.
Yeah. And so that again, that wraps up our customer journey. Again, 4 phases. We have initiation, pre-construction, which is a big part of our customer journey, probably 2/3. Then we have construction and post-construction. Again, if you're looking for services, that's something that we especially offer and try to provide for our customers. But again, that can be as simple as making sure that you understand exactly how to live and manage your new home.
Yeah.
So any questions? I know we have a Q&A section. Any questions that have been dropped in there? Really happy to go through. And if you haven't yet, check out the Q&A, drop your questions in so we can get those answered.
Yeah. All right. So one of the first ones is electrical plumbing hookups to 40 feet. So that's something that we include in our builds. Is this because most people are within that range? And how often is it further than this?
Yeah, I would say the majority of customers fall within probably a 50-foot range on most of their connections. Again, this is something that we absolutely talk about case by case because we're not gonna, charge you 50 extra bucks because you're, 42 feet. We're not that type of company. We're again a customer-based company. So if you have a particular need, whether it's within that range or say it's twice as long, when we come out, we'll discuss openly exactly what it will take to get your unit facilitated. And we have seen up to 150 feet. That's where we're really starting to get into this is going to be an additional cost once you have, a really large property and start extending to the back of that property.
All right. Can you talk a little about universal design and how an established plan or process can help keep costs down?
Absolutely. So universal design, again, is really big for us. You'll see it in all of our designs. It's not just in our designs for seniors. And the reason for that is we all have family and loved ones or people who visit that space or that the use of that space may change. So when we look at design, we look at it from an accessibility standpoint. What does that mean? That means wider doorways, larger hallways to make sure that we can facilitate wheelchairs or folks with disabilities. That also means a ton of natural daylighting for those with sight issues. Things as far as reachability for sinks, appliances, showers. Our showers typically come roll-in shower, which again allows for wheelchair accessibility. We do also offer materials that are a little bit more friendly to our folks that may have a risk of injury, falls, bruising, things like that. So when we consider those things up front, a simple cost savings goes something like this. You have a bathroom in your unit that is has a door that's 30 inches wide, and you have a shower stall that may be 4 foot wide because you're an active adult, you're building it for yourself, and that's what you're going to do. Well, you may want to rent this out to someone, say 5 years down the line, or you yourself may go through some aging, whether that's being in a wheelchair, using a walker, having accessibility issues. We consider those things up front. So naturally we say, if you go 32 inches, that's going to facilitate in most cases, wheelchairs or folks with a hard time with movement. If we're talking about our showers are typically 60-inch wide. So again, if you need to add a bench or add a chair, or someone with a disability may need to use that shower in the future, then we already have that built in. Otherwise, now we're talking about demolition, reconstruction, and rehab projects within a unit that's been built in recent times. It just, again, really considers savings up front. The example I used earlier, we built in a deck and a set of stairs. And we designed it so that it would easily transform into an ADA compliant ramp. If we didn't consider that, we probably wouldn't consider layout of that ramp and how it can best facilitate the homeowner if they do need that in the future. So again, that would now be ripping that deck completely out and having to provide a brand new ADA compliant deck. So considering those things early in the project, obviously is going to help save some money on the back end and rehab and things like that.
Okay. So speaking of natural daylight, a lot of people will say this when they see the unit. So we take the express pod out and we've got these lovely high ceilings, and immediately people say, oh, I thought there was a loft or an upstairs or something like that. So do you build lofts or two-story buildings?
We do not build lofts. We have considered two-story buildings, but again, coming from the mindset of accessibility, single-level living is a big component of how we design. Again, depending on your priorities, if that's a must-have or non-negotiable, then that's something we can discuss early on in the project. But we will have a discussion around accessibility, future use, and how that may affect the aging of your property. So we can do that again. That's a topic for conversation.
All right. And then what about solar requirements, speaking of daylight?
That's right. So all new construction in California requires solar. So if we're building an ADU detached from the home and it is an on-site built ADU, there is a requirement for solar. There are some exemptions for that, but again, our units are all electrical by California code, which means that you're building in a cost savings when you add that electrical. So over time, you're going to build in a savings if you do build in solar. We offer that as an add-on to our projects, meaning we have solar partners. We don't include that in our immediate project. Again, when we talk about permitting, getting all that stuff done, we do that first, and then we apply for solar separate. But that applies to all detached ADUs that are built on site. Now, if you have a main home, you can always add solar to that main home as well. So you can improve the solar in your main home that covers the cost, that offsets the cost of the ADU as well. Another exemption is if your roof size is too small, you can get an exemption. Or if there's too much shading on your property, there are some exemptions for solar. But again, if you're talking about building a home that's sustainable, that's moving towards that carbon zero foot or neutral footprint, solar is obviously a consideration here in California, and it's something we consider on all of our builds.
Okay. Yeah, another thing that comes up is a concern about the fit of a unit into a yard. A lot of people ask about craning in. I know that people crane in hot tubs. I know that people crane in sheds. Why do we avoid that at all costs?
Well, it's at all costs, right? So we had a recent example of this when someone, had a design for an ADU, a company, again, that didn't come out to the site, didn't do a property visit or anything like that. And they got quoted a price. And then once they finally got further down the process, they basically said, well, based on your property, we're going to need a bigger crane because you have a higher home, deeper property. So we'll need a bigger crane. That's going to cost you an additional $70,000. So those are the type of considerations that we have up front is what is this going to cost us and how much time is this really going to save us? And so when we talk about craning in versus panelized system, we really have that flexibility to go into these yards, especially here in the East Bay. It's just most of these homes are on tighter streets, tighter roads. You have power lines, you have accessibility considerations that it really made sense for us as a company to say, we're going to do a system that we can build fast, efficient, but in most cases for our customers that really need it. Now, if we're talking some of these properties, and it does fit for some properties to have a home craned in. If you're, you got a wide open lot, say you're, out in Central California, or you have a flat, big lot of land, then it may make sense for a crane to work for your property. But in most cases, when we're seeing in the infill and the East Bay area, that's not the case.
All right. And then another thing that comes up too is matching the existing house. How do we match the structure to the existing house, or do you need to do that? Different materials that are used, height of the roof line, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So every city has their own considerations. Every municipality has their own considerations, what they consider matching the aesthetic of the neighborhood, as they call it. And in a lot of cases, that means similar siding. So you may have shingle siding, but you want lap siding. That's most okay in most cases. Where you really see them get stringent about these aesthetic issues is in HOAs. So when you have a set of homes that all really closely resemble each other, they're going to want that home to match the aesthetic of the neighborhood. That does include roof pitch, that does include siding. So if your front home is stucco, they're going to want to see that mirrored on the back home. But again, that's a case by case basis. So some cities are very lenient when they say matching aesthetic. In some cases, they're really stringent. So that's where, again, having someone who knows the lay of the land, who can go in and talk to these cities and understand what they're going to require is a benefit. If not, call down to the city. They'll give you, in most cases, direct answers if they have it.
Nice. All right. Well, with that, I think we want to just talk about a little the next webinar we have coming up. That's going to be Wednesday. So rather than our normal Thursdays, we're going to be doing Wednesday, November 8th. And that is going to be, what is our topic? That is going to be construction methods and materials. Well, that fits right in with kind of what we're talking about.
So we'll go a little bit into depth. We will have, some other folks on who can speak to some more of the construction materials and building methods. As we move along in time, obviously, we have different building methods and what we now call building science, which has advanced a ton over the past few years as far as how do you build a healthier home? How do you build a home that's going to last longer, that's going to prevent mold, mildew, failing elements of the building like windows or doors where you see dry rot, things like that. Building has come a far way, and there's some amazing new products out there that will make sure your build will have the most efficient, again, moving towards those carbon neutral elements. And we're excited about the folks that we're going to have on. Some folks who are kind of nerd out on building science like myself. So we'll have a good conversation if anyone's interested in what's going into your unit and how is your unit going to be built. Some really good stuff.
Nice. And then again, for that customer journey document, we can get you a visual. The phone number again for the showroom here is 925-248-8736. My contact information directly is Laura, Laura, at wearewellnest.com. And anything else? I think we're about out of time. I think this was super insightful. It's, like I said, it's really important to have an idea of what to expect when you're investing this kind of time and money into something that you want to be, like you said, a home, a long-term solution, not something that's going to be a temporary, an analogy is, remember the Yugo cars, everybody, that was around in the 80s? You could buy one for like $1,500. And I mean, you could buy like 6 of them for what you would pay for one good car. So anyway, just considering that.
Yeah, so again, I mean, there's a ton of information out there. I think that at this point, do your research, find things like this where folks are really giving you the information. There's a ton of advocacy around ADUs because it is such a great solution for California housing issues that we're going through. We try to participate as much as we can as far as knowing some of the bills that are on the table, knowing some of the bills that have just passed, and really speaking up for ADUs when it comes to the legislative side, the city level. So again, if there's any information that you want, reach out to us, shoot us an email, shoot us a phone call. Laura's always very, very welcoming. And if you have my email, that's bgrant@wearewellness.com. Again, bgrant@wearewellness.com. Shoot me an email and we'll try to get you any information you need as far as new laws that are coming down the line, potential grants or financing that are available at a state level or at a local level, our in-house financing, information about your particular property. Feel free to reach out.
And just a shout out to the ADU community as a whole. Just this past weekend, we did an ADU event, and it's just fantastic. Everybody is very open and honest and all wanting to come up with solutions. So, and willing to team up with each other. So, yeah, check in with us and we will get you the information you need. And we hope to see you again real soon.
Absolutely.
And thanks
Thank you
again,
again, Laura.
McCoy. Yeah,
Thanks for everybody
absolutely.
for jumping on, and hope you had a good lunch, and we will see you guys again in a couple of weeks.
All right. Be well.
Be well.